Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Parsonsfield Planning Board on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Our second item after call to order is public hearings. We're opening a public hearing on the site plan review for Keyser Commons LLC, map U04, lot 003, 18 Federal Road, for mixed use, commercial, retail, office, residential, and short-term rentals. And do we have a new site plan review?
Basically the old one.
Versus, I have several copies here.
Yeah,
So the most recent one has the owner's,
signatures and
sellers,
stuff.
name, signature, and address, as well as the owner's information.
There, yeah. Like that. We didn't have it before.
They're all dated the same date though.
This is before.
But they're all dated the same, but they were submitted at different times.
Yeah, all we really wanted was the signature and the information from not from anyone, from the owner or the seller. So they just submitted it on the same form instead of just doing a new one.
And it's the board's prerogative to take this contract for,
Yes, there's a new one in the case.
As a- purview to
I picked up this.
Purchase sale agreement.
go to court, right?
All right.
Right at the,
But we're using this to accept it, to be able to hear the site.
right,
So it might have only been one copy, but there was a copy on this table that had,
right signature on it.
yes, I saw it.
Yeah, that's all that was requested.
Yeah, Roger, do you have?
I might.
Mark Mounts and then Alfred Lindquist Jr.
Yeah, but it was on the front page.
I don't have that copy.
I don't have that copy. He doesn't have it. The front page.
I don't think this one's gonna have it.
Whether it was on the table.
Yeah, I think we all of us down here are the same.
It still says the same.
Yeah, I don't know, if it's the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So Desiree showing us the emailed copy with the corrected signatures.
Yeah, and I saw it when I put everything out. I don't know where.
Okay. All right, can we hear from the board on this, or anyone here from the public to speak on this matter?
Yeah, this is a hearing.
No, go ahead. I would think they were gonna discuss the sidewalk.
That's down farther in the agenda.
Yep. This is a public hearing, so we can hear any concerns from the public, this portion.
This is the public hearing first.
So, did we get to hear about the sidewalk before we comment, or
No.
no?
Well, there's public questions at the end, Jeff. The way the agenda is written, today, the public hearing is first.
No.
I found the paper copy.
Oh, thank you.
I wasn't there, so wouldn't know what to ask. Is there any parking over there? I should ask that.
Besides the municipal parking lot,
Yeah, there's 3 to 4 up front. We got the municipal parking lot across the street. And we got a couple on the side of the building. 3, 4. And then we have out back also. So we got plenty of parking.
Well, I don't want to get into the town thing, but when the Stanley Building approached the town, they weren't allowed to use the town parking lot. And the town parking lot says you can't park there after dark. So That's what the sign says.
Well, certainly, anybody who's a customer at the Stanley Building could use the municipal parking lot, isn't that correct?
Yes and no, yes and no.
Well, is it yes or no?
Well, let me finish my thing. So, 3 or 4 spaces, how wide, because I was there, how long is the frontage?
Enough for like 3 cars comfortably.
How many
How
feet?
how many feet?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 90 feet.
Did anybody from the select board bring a tape measure anything?
No, but we got a,
You got a plot plan that
no,
says?
we have a 2-scale plot plan now that's been brought into it so we can scale it right off of the drawings. That's why I was looking at that earlier.
Yeah,
Before, we only had these small ones that were scaled down.
right.
So 1 inch equals 250 feet on that drawing. I just looked at it. And it's 250 feet, so every 1/4 inch is equal to what? 470? 280? So 60, 24. So 60 feet is a 1/4 inch, roughly thereabouts, between 55 and 60, by this drawing.
Okay.
That's the scale.
Front of the building is 110 feet, 110.6 feet.
Right. But it narrows down as it goes down. It's not all the same width from the to the roads.
So, what is the state code on that? For parking?
Well, the town has an ordinance for parking.
Right, but what is it?
What's-
If it's a state road, what would the state be? Would it be 17-229?
Possibly, I'm not familiar with specific state codes,
Or it
but
would be 22999B2?
again, I'm not specific with what either of those.
I wasn't on the
Don't worry.
sidewalk, I just figured you guys must have known all this stuff. So, is it gonna be perpendicular, angle, or parallel?
It would have to be parallel
Parallel.
from a width standpoint.
Standpoint. So what is the length for a parallel parking spot?
What is the what?
Length, the length and width for a parallel
I'd
parking.
have to look it up in what our ordinance says.
Well, it depends on if you're driving a Prius or an F-250 double cab, okay?
18.5 feet,
Depends on how many cars, what's that?
18.5 feet.
Yeah, I
18.5 feet.
I get that.
That's right.
I guess the
Right
standard,
here.
I think the standard length is 22 feet
It's 18 and a half,
and 18 and 8 wide.
18 and a half according to our.
Page 25 in their
State.
ordinance.
He got his measurements from the state, so.
All right, so anyways, I'm just going by state rates because it's the thing.
So I'd say 3. 3 spots up front, comfortably.
Right.
Are there existing spots already in place? I apologize, I wasn't at the sidewalk, so. I know they may not be well maintained,
They're
but
not designed, there's no lines there just to depict parking spaces,
okay.
individual spaces. But the way this reads, if you go to page 24, 25, 26 in our ordinance, it gives you some pretty good definition of parking spaces.
Yeah. So it's gonna be parallel parking in front of the bank, and the abutters, what do they have for parking? Do they have parallel, perpendicular, or angle?
Angle, I believe.
Yeah, it's angled.
The next,
In front of the daycare?
Daycare is angle.
Daycare is angled.
Yeah.
in front of the building next to them is angled, the front of the building next to them is perpendicular.
It's a little convoluted over there. We did that when we did the site.
Perpendicular isn't allowed on State Road 35 miles an hour and under.
Okay, but that's not the subject property.
No, I'm just,
Right.
am I right, Jesse?
What?
Perpendicular is not allowed in the State Road?
No, I'm reading about perpendicular parking right in our ordinance.
Okay, all right, because I don't know who paints the lines in town.
Nobody.
According to that crosswalk.
So, and to be honest with you, I looked at this building a long time ago and I was told that there was no septic and no parking and it was just a dry storage building. So I don't know how it all got changed over. last 20 years, but.
Well, that's what we're kind of to do, is to change it from dry storage to workable storage.
Right. So, but if there's no parking, you say there's parking, but
There's parking.
there's parking, is there parking on the Stanley Building property or outside the Stanley?
Both, yeah, both.
Well, how many parking spots do you think you can get on the Stanley property, period? Not anywhere else, but on the Stanley property, period. I'll address it to the board maybe. You guys know? I wasn't there at the sidewalk, I'm asking these questions.
To clarify, you're asking what has been proposed for parking on the Stanley property?
On the Stanley property.
Okay. Do we have that in this new,
No, it don't show the parking on
no
there.
parking?
There's no
has been
parking shown on
proposed?
there.
Okay.
No proposed, but when I look at the property lines that are designed on the scale drawing, there's no place to put additional parking on the Stanley Building property per se, just the Stanley Building. Am I right? Yes, I'm right. Because of the difference, the space between the outside edge of the building and the property line is very, very narrow.
like-
So you don't have the space to build a parking space there by our ordinance behind the building, on either side of the building. But only in the front where you say that there's 2 or 3, there's 110 feet.
There's parking at the 3 to 4
That's all.
on the side, on the west side of the building.
Not by the property lines.
No, it goes way out there, Alan.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about on the west side down there by the
Oh, by the-
driveway.
On the west side.
Bridge,
There may be 3, yeah.
3 to 4.
on the bridge side.
On that west side. And then out back, well, we have easement rights to park there.
We don't know that. I have to go by what's on your drawing.
Well, you can read the easements. We got the packet right there if you want to dig into it.
I don't need to read into that. I'm going by what the space you got on your property line in your building. I'm trying to answer his question. That's what I'm trying to do. Now then, do you get an easement? You can always get an easement, I agree, with your neighbors, and you can get someone to agree to allow you to use their spaces, because it tells you can in the book, in the ordinance. You can do that. But not by what you've got on the drawings. Because it tells me down here, if you read item on page 24, item L, off-street parking and loading, sub-item E, the joint use of a parking facility by 2 or more principal buildings, which it could be, or uses may be approved by the planning board, we have to approve it, where it is clearly demonstrated that said parking facilities will substantially meet the intent of the requirement by reason of variations in the probable time of maximum use by patrons or employees of such establishments. So you can do that, but we have to approve it, so.
Has he done it? I mean,
I don't know. I have no idea, because it hasn't come to us, has it, board? It hasn't come to us.
So what's the issue?
parking, I guess. I mean,
Having the okay from the surrounding places that you want to use for parking.
By the number of spaces based on,
The mill gives the Stanley Building.
Right, but what
right.
he's saying is it's not on record as stating such.
If you go to page 26 and 27 of that same paragraph, it tells you how many spaces you got to have for each type of activity that you're going to put in that building. And I'll just give you one example. Residential units, you tell us it's going to be on the top floor, right? On the Stanley Building.
Yes.
That's when we did the site walk, we were
Yeah.
told that.
Yeah.
How many units are going to be up there roughly? 4, 6? 3? So residential units with 2 or more bedrooms, how many bedrooms in each one?
There is one. and
Okay. Residential units with 1 bedroom requires 1.5 spaces per apartment. So that means that takes all your spaces up right there, just if you rent the spaces upstairs.
We're putting a park in the mill, no park.
Understand that. I got that. But what we're trying to answer their question, presently, there's nothing that we've acted upon as a planning board to accept a joint use of parking in that whole area that I recall. Am I right or wrong, board?
You're correct.
Can board, someone else verify that?
Pretty much right, yeah.
And then it also tells us how many spaces you've got to have for each of the, let's say you're going to use something else in there at the same time. No, not that one. Professional services of some type. Barbers, hairdressers, real estate.
Drive-in, takeout restaurant.
No, one space for each 250 square feet. That whole first floor, I understand you're going to rent that out. Is that right, Chris?
The whole building.
The whole building, okay. So that's going to take
A
more
restaurant,
spaces that we don't know about yet.
space per 3
That's all I'm
seats.
saying. I'm
Restaurant.
trying to answer the
Clear
public's
that.
question.
So I guess the answer is that they own the adjoining property and that will be the parking lot.
As long as there's an agreement of some type.
Yes.
Yeah,
There has to be a written agreement that you bring to us, the board, the planning board, and we have to approve that.
Okay.
And if you read, please go to page 24, 25, 26, and 27. That's for commercial and apartments. Enough said, Alan, shut up.
Well, no, you're correct, because they also need to provide one parking space for each working employee, and if you're having
Yeah,
multiple
and you got
businesses-
employees too.
And restaurants eat up a lot of your parking.
I guess to answer your question, they got about 6 to 7 parking spaces just for the Stanley building. I think that was your original question, how many that went with the Stanley building?
6 or 7?
That's what they're, 3 out front and up to 3 to 4 on the west side.
That it's not defined.
It's not defined, but that's what they're saying is there on the property.
All right.
Well, that's what we're trying to let them know. Yeah,
Should have this been discussed before you had the site walk, or?
it probably should have been brought up at some point, but in hindsight,
But the parking spaces, none of the parking spaces, and none of the plans that we've received include parking spaces.
Shouldn't it have before the site plan?
Well, Jeff, also sometimes the site plan, as you've been to plenty, is you get a discovery of information, and I think that's one of those cases.
Right. Yeah, like the discovery of not being the owner of the building. I know it's nebulous, but
yep.
It has always had that many parking spaces.
Thank you. Can we move on to the next comment from anyone?
Hard to know.
well, I
We've
think,
established that there's a parking issue that we need to go forward with.
okay.
You're aware that you will need to present a parking plan to the town. Mary,
How are they gonna provide septic?
we're gonna get down to that point, but holding tanks, I believe.
The question is, she said what?
Is it holding tanks?
It's in the site plan review, it's number G,
Yeah.
you know?
I understand that. It's a public forum right now, so we're gonna address those more
Right, but-
specifically when we
but
get to the site plan
usually-
review.
Right after a hearing, it says right in here that
Site plan review.
basically what it says is that it's the basic final process before you make a decision is when you have a hearing. It's usually when you're ready to make a decision.
So from a septic standpoint, the application includes a request that was approved by the Saco River Corridor Commission to use the holding tanks for construction,
Yeah.
for the construction workers, and then to develop the septic plan for the building for its uses afterwards. That is what we have received for a septic at this point. We have not received any plan for a septic design for the building.
And you don't feel that that's the cart before the horse?
None of us have said that. We've got to determine if the application is complete. That's what we'll do later. If we have a complete application. And then, once we have a complete application,
But you won't have a complete application because
well,
2G
we'll determine that.
about a septic,
Right, and,
and you don't have an answer.
well, again, the answer is that they're going to use the holding tanks
Where is
During
that in
construction.
writing? I mean, I've got that in writing. I know the Saco River Corridor Commission gave him permission during construction.
Right,
That's it. Just construction.
correct.
And you guys are sticking your neck out.
Nobody's approved this.
Nothing's
You're gonna
approved.
approve this
You're,
without septic and without parking.
Marion, you don't know that we're going to approve that. You're making an assumption.
Yep.
Well, what facts do you have that we're going to approve this?
What are my facts?
That we're going to, that we're,
You accepted his application for his site plan when he signed as the owner. You accepted it. You didn't say conditions on him supplying another site plan with the proper information on it.
And once it was determined that he wasn't the owner, we requested that they get the owner's signature, which he then provided.
Which
We
you,
don't have to be the owner. We don't have to be the owner.
no, you don't, but it does say in this book that the
So we
owner
corrected it.
has
We
to
corrected it.
either write a letter or
He signed-
something
he signed it.
confirming that
Right.
he is and you hadn't.
Well, we have.
okay,
But you
Let's-
didn't do it in the
let's keep
proper
it down
order
and civil.
whatsoever.
Again, my statement was simply the fact is you do not know that we're going to approve this. So don't, you're, again, isn't that putting the cart before the horse? Okay, so next point. Does somebody else have a point, Jeff?
Well, I do know that the planning board was going to sort of accept it with the owner's signature, with the applicant's signature until I pointed it out. And it got by the CEO, got by the planning board, and then I have to point it out.
Well, we haven't accepted it all
So-
yet
It still
anyway.
has not been accepted by the planning board or approved.
I know, but it was going through your hands with the signature,
Noted.
Yeah.
it's just, how does this get by people? I just don't get it. All right, so we talked about the parking. I did notice there's a lot of paint chips and on the ground, and it's probably none of my business if it's got lead in it or not next to a daycare, but has it been tested for lead?
Jesse, are you aware of that?
Environmental study been done, you need to ask them.
Yeah.
Have you had an environmental study done?
Yes, we have, complete. So that cost us over 10 grand.
What did they say about the paint?
When it is suspect, the rule is, when it is suspect, you assume that it is, and you take all the necessary precautions in prepping, whether it's scraping or pressure washing or what have you, to collect it. That's what we'll have to do. And so we both took the state certification for abatement. So we've got it all down and know what we have to do. So that'll be taken care of. We have to.
Did they test the paint for lead?
We have not tested it, but we're just going under the assumption. And so that's the rules. If it is suspect, it's safer to assume that it is lead and go through the proper procedures of collecting it upon prepping. So when you're scraping and pressure washing, so you have to collect it, and it has to be disc cleaning, it has to be rolled out in a certain way, taped off a certain
Copy.
way to dispose of.
So you paid that much for an environmental study, but didn't have the paint tested?
Correct, yeah.
And you,
We could still do it, but we're under the assumption that it is, so why spend the money to go through all that process when we're gonna treat it as it is?
are you taking any current steps to keep the paint chips from being dispersed throughout the neighboring abutting properties?
We have vacuumed, yes,
Okay.
yep. But it's an occurring thing, but unless we can actually do something with the building, we're not gonna go forward with anything. If it's just gonna be deemed dry storage, well, we'll just resell the building as dry storage. But if we can do something with the building, then we're gonna paint it up and we're gonna make it 100% usable. But we're not gonna go through thousands of dollars worth of painting and engineering and design and all that unless we get this first step resolved.
Aaron?
It isn't a question.
Okay.
It's just to let you all know, I'm not against this, but I want it done right.
I don't disagree.
I don't disagree. You're right.
You are
I'm
right.
not against it,
Point of order.
but, you know, the parking, the septic, everything's gotta be in order, everything.
I
100% agree.
At this time, I'm definitely not against this project at all. I want the public to know that too. But at the same time, I, as a planning board member, want to make sure we do it in such a manner that there's no repercussions down the road. That's how I feel about it. That's why I followed up about the parking. I've been studying this book about the parking after I did the site walk. That's why I found out what I found out. So there's an issue down there with the parking. I know that, and the book says it is by the drawings. I agree. But I don't believe anybody on this board is not in support of this project. We want to see it move forward. It'd be a wonderful thing for this community. But at the same time, you're right. We got to make sure it's done correctly. I don't want someone to come back and say, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or I'm going to sue the planning board because they didn't do this. I don't want to get sued.
I don't wanna have an appeal,
No, I don't either.
but
But it is what it is, and that's what we got as a planning board. We must act upon the information that we have that's been submitted by the potential buyers and what the public is bringing up too. All those aspects all have to fit together.
Can I ask you something too? It has something to do with the Stanley Building. So the Stanley Building had an issue of using the Mills septic tank. It got discontinued. It was deemed unusable, June 2020 or something like that. But you're gonna let them use the holding tank. Then I guess we get a high count of E. coli, I guess, on the river.
Just to clarify, we haven't approved anything. Saco River Corridor has said that that is okay. We have not.
We haven't heard that.
No, I'm just saying that the count is up for some reason. So we pumped it, I guess. Do you know if the pumping fees are gonna go on the taxes of the Stanley Building?
Say that again?
We were pumping out the septic tank in the mill for the Stanley Building. Are we charging the Stanley Building on their taxes for that pumping fee? Maybe Harvey can answer it because he was on the.
We're not, at this time, we're not charged anything for the past year, but I don't think, I don't know, the tax,
Well, I know they
I
spent
don't know
what,
if it was put on taxes or not. I think we're hopeful to get some of that back from,
I don't know that that fits in our purview. I mean, if there's a question about taxation and things like that,
I
certainly
just didn't know how the pumping fees
that might,
on the Stanley Building.
don't know.
There was one like $12,000 or something like that, so I didn't know if that was gonna be on the, tax bill of the Stanley Building.
That wouldn't be in our
If somebody's gonna buy the building, then they're gonna have to pay the pumping fees that were already done.
Yeah.
It's a valid concern, but I don't think it's something we have the knowledge to
Right.
answer.
Right, so let's talk about lead chips. Assuming it's lead chips. There's two daycare buildings right next door to it. It's vacuumed, Scott? Not swept, right?
Not blown, not swept, but we big shop vac, so it's been a while. since-
You're telling me the truth, right?
Yeah,
You wouldn't be
I didn't do
right.
it, I didn't do it. My brother's wife did it. They vacuumed it with a shop vac because there was so much of it and it made a huge difference. But
Okay, so
it's constantly-
no one's swept it, Scott? That you're aware of?
That I'm aware of,
That you're aware of?
that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But it has been vacuumed up. But it's constantly coming down. It's just shedding like every day and every day. Every storm, it gets washed off and off the sidewalk and into the gutter and downstream it goes.
There you go. Solution of pollution is dilution.
Well,
Well, that's been going on for a long time.
My question is, neither of you are the current owner.
we have equitable title. Okay. So we are legally able to sign on this paper the way we did, but to satisfy concerns, if it's legitimate or not, we had the mortgage holder who has actual title, since we have a ironclad contract with the actual owner. We have a contract purchase agreement that gives us, for state law, equitable title for our lawyer. So that's how that works. So we are well within our rights to sign and to continue with this application. Us being we resolved this, and I think one of the first meetings we had, we looked up the bylaws and everything, and it stated in there how we have the legal right to sign this application as having right, title, or interest, correct? That's right?
I'm not sure about
Well, that's the way it resolves.
I don't have that information in my packet today.
What's that?
Any of you have in your packet that agreement?
I
have no copy of that agreement.
Our email, we were requested one copy of that. It does it right here.
Yeah, save it.
Okay.
Is this my copy with all the redactions?
Yes.
There was many that we requested, I think, 10 copies of each packet, so we went through and complied with everything as far as the numbers go.
Yeah, so there's that one copy.
Pass that down.
Thank you.
Oh, that's the contract.
And
I have a copy of it.
everything that you guys sent to me was forwarded up to the board. So that's, yeah.
It's different.
Jeff?
But, so if you're gonna use the parking for the mill, and you get an agreement with the mill property that you can use that parking, right? Does that affect the parking for the mill?
Sure.
So the more cars you park standing, does that decrease the amount of parking that the mill can use?
Can I just ask a question? And I'm not, I just want to interject. Is
Go
this
ahead.
are we still dealing with the site plan review? Because now we're talking about parking at the mill.
Well, no, he wants to park at the mill. The Stanley Building doesn't have any much parking, so he wants to put parking in the town parking lot
Right.
and behind the mill.
Right. Now you're
On the
asking
mill
if that's going
property.
to affect
On
the
the-
mill. So rather than start talking about mill and parking,
Well, what's gonna happen is you granted the Stanley Building to use the mill. And then the mill comes in and says, we're gonna,
well, this is the mill right here.
right,
So the way the ordinance reads,
so how,
They have to come to an agreement and
right,
that
so
that
how
hasn't
many
been
parking
discussed
spaces,
yet.
how many parking spaces does the mill need?
so to answer your question, Jeff,
Stanley Building.
the joint use of a parking facility, say there are 20 spots. If building A is borrowing 10 of those spots, building B only has 10 spots. So whatever the parking plan is and whatever the use of that parking, it would be a combined. So if they show us a plan for the mill that has 50 parking spots and they're going to use 15, then the mill would have the remaining 35.
Fine, that's what I guess that's.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, it would have an impact on,
Right, it's gonna have an impact on,
correct. Yeah, you can't have a parking lot for 3 different places and everybody's using 30 spots and it's only a 20 spot thing.
right, well, that's what that's
Yeah.
my concern, I guess, because somebody could, I don't know, hardship, I guess, right? They didn't know.
Well, any future, so if we, say we got a application that was using, it's a municipal lot, but the lot across the street from, say, you know, the post office where they wanted to expand and they needed to add 5 more spots, we would need to account for the businesses that are utilizing the spots in that lot. So the hardware store, other businesses. So we'd have to look at those other plans. So if and when the mill comes before us, the parking plan for the mill will need to include the number of spots being utilized by the Stanley Building.
But isn't that the same as for the Stanley Building? you're gonna have to do the exact same thing.
Correct, we need a parking plan. Yeah, we've determined that.
I just wanted to make sure that you're gonna have to subtract whatever parking you use on the mill, it's gonna have to be subtracted from the mill,
Yep.
future.
And all the other buildings, right? I mean, because there's other utilizations being, there's industrial work, there's other things. So any of those uses, each of those uses has a specific space requirement, and it's mostly by square footage. Yeah.
Was on when the bakery was going in, they had to have X amount of spots.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so same thing. If you're sharing a parking facility, then those spots have to be accounted for and all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm, like I said, I'm not for or against, I'm just trying to make sure that, just go by the rules, I guess.
Can I ask Bobby a direct questions from being a selectman?
Related to the mill? Related to the Stanley Building, I'm sorry.
In the building.
Yep, sure.
How many spaces actually, I've never known this, how many spaces does the town own in that parking lot?
They own 58-foot frontage from between the two posts, lamp posts, I think, or posts out front, and it goes back, I think, I'm only guessing, but probably maybe 500 feet or so. And it goes back into the woods a little bit, and a little bit that ends up on Fox Road.
I need a mathematician to tell me how many
I
spaces.
couldn't tell you how many.
Yes,
A guess? I'd probably say 20.
okay. Because I know that the post office owns part of it, so does the hardware store.
But the post office, according to what we own, has a number of slots on their property. And so does the hardware store. So the hardware store probably has enough to appropriate what they need. I don't know what the ordinances say on it, but if they have 5 slots over there, they've got plenty.
I just wanted some sort of a number. That's all.
Closer to 40, but.
You could figure that out, I suppose.
Not that many spaces.
Painting wise, there's only 12 spots.
12.
Painting wise, there's 12 spots.
That's what I got.
There are, is it 6 or 5, Jeff, for the post office?
It's 6.
Yeah, I think it's 6 too. They're super skinny though. Yeah, so there's right on the road. But there are 12 painted spots, which the post office is using 4 of.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
No.
parking their vans.
No overnight.
We own the stuff in the center.
From my understanding.
Yes,
No, I
that
get
was my understanding.
Yeah,
And the front spaces are out of the post office.
correct.
That's why we got 15-minute parking for those spaces. You can't park more than 15 minutes in them.
Yep.
They can't even be counted.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other comments?
I think I'm all set. Your hand is up?
I have a couple questions. I appreciate your attention to detail, and I think the big confusion here is that, did you say that you haven't even voted this as complete yet?
Correct.
So we did the site walk, and we're at a public hearing, and it's not complete. And under parking, it says, and I appreciate a great site walk, because you were very helpful, but it was unfortunate you guys didn't stick around to answer questions, because questions that the planning board didn't know, but you were off with the other group. So,
No, we were there the whole time, we were the last ones to leave.
but you weren't with the 3 members.
Well,
Which, I'm just saying, I couldn't ask where was the hole that's been pumped for so long for the Stanley Building? Nobody knew.
You didn't ask.
I did ask. And we looked, we couldn't find it.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that, that there's a letter from the state saying it's malfunctioning. The planning board doesn't have that on the application to allow the construction workers to use it. I believe the mill was required to put a porta potty down there a few years ago. I don't think there's one there, but there's something going on with as Jen read at the selectmen's meeting, the Court of Commissions identified unhealthy E. coli levels. I had emailed you, but you probably didn't get it. For the letter on the data from the commission, because Brent Lawson had said if that is the reason, it's gonna have to be inspected again. So I think,
It's total conjecture at this point.
right,
Yeah,
it has to be
Yep. we
bracketed.
don't know where it's coming from.
Right. They do test up at the covered bridge though, so I think we know it's below
Who does that?
Quarter.
Quarter, okay.
So I worked for the Corridor Commission in the 2000s. This has been a problem a long time. I'm concerned that all of a sudden they've flipped back into using it and that's why they kicked the last owner out. I'm concerned that they didn't put in a septic design because they know it's a problem. It was part of why the last owner is not there. It's been known to be limited since 2005 as to how much water usage can go on. The main water company's right there, they're saying they can park down the side. Saying parking's not applicable in a giant building like that, we don't even know, so 1-bedroom apartment needs 1.5, how many spaces for a 2-bedroom?
2.
All those uses, and they put not applicable on the parking, and they're gonna tell us park out front. We saw that little white car out there, if they open their door, it's gonna get ripped right off the car, those aren't spaces. It used to be before Route 25 widened. There is so much here that I feel like this is the cart before the horse, because we don't have all your details, you know? And if you're willing to proceed and not just say, hey, this is all incomplete, come back with a complete application so we can look at this, then I think you need to extend the public hearing till after all the information is out, because right now, it's not here. And they don't seem willing to do anything other than speculate where it can go. You
What do
think
you mean, what do you mean by that?
water company's gonna allow cars to park down the side of the building, on the west side? There's a right of way
What do
there.
you mean we're not willing to do what it takes to get this, I mean, that was
The
snide,
part-
that was snide, that was not true.
I'm not
That's
trying
true
to be snide
at all. We're
when
trying to comply in any way
when
we
Mr.
possibly
Wright
can.
was asking about parking.
Yeah, but you said
You
we're not
didn't
willing to.
say it's not
You said we're
applicable.
not willing to do what it takes. We are willing to do what it takes. So there's
Let's make sure that we're addressing our comments and questions to the board, please.
I wasn't trying to upset you, I'm only saying you didn't say, we'll put together the required parking plan that everybody else in Parsonsfield needs to adhere by. They're just saying 3 out front, 2 in the back, 1 on the side, when that's dangerous. That's very dangerous to be opening a car right onto the bridge essentially.
Yeah, we appreciate the concern over parking and it'll be addressed.
Okay, and I apologize because we don't have all your information, but we're being sort of, nudged into asking these questions without all of the information available yet.
Understandable. So I do want to address the first part of that though, where you think that we're early with these. So the typical cadence for these is we receive an application, we do our initial run through, any information that's missing, we request that information. And then we assume that we are going to get the information that is being requested. So to expedite the process, we schedule the site walk and the public hearing for the next month. So assuming that we'll receive the information that's being requested of us. Obviously, we can run into situations where things that we see at the site walk or things that we receive from that additional information can lead to more questions and we may or may not be able to have a complete application today. But our intent is that, you have the first meeting, you schedule it out, and we've been doing that for as long as I've been here. And that's sort of the cadence that we do it at. This is the first application where, there are still continuing questions. And so we'll make sure that everything's addressed. Obviously, like we said, our goal is to have all the concerns addressed and make sure that everything is met, so,
And I appreciate your attention to detail, I do.
thank you.
That, just to elaborate on the parallel parking spaces up front, I know that Parsonsfield is not a city or a large municipality, but that type of parking is very common, to open a door into traffic. There's no regulation for if the door swings into traffic or not.
as long as your front tires are 1 foot off the white line,
So back to the parking, is it 3 or 4 in front of it?
Well, it depends on who parks there.
No, it's not.
There's, so, all right, I'm gonna try to do my best to settle the parking. We currently do not have a formal application for anything to do with parking. There is nothing on any maps that we have. So that is something that we will need.
Right.
We all agree. Until we have that, I think the back and forth on the parking it's not productive.
Well,
We will directly address the
what I'm
parking.
just trying to say is it 3? Is it 4?
Don't know, need a plan.
And can a citizen just paint his own
No.
lines?
No.
Or does the state get involved in
Okay.
painting the lines?
Jeff, we understand this parking concerns. I'm not trying to quell
I'm
that.
just asking.
In the
if you-
sense of getting some expedition to this process, does anyone have anything that has something to do not with parking? I think you all understand we are also concerned about parking and we intend on addressing it. But asking questions that you already know we don't have the answer.
No, I just.
It's not productive.
I know, and I just wanted to know if does the main DOT decide that?
I think we have a combination of state and local regulations to look at. And the
It's dependent
overall
on
use of the.
if the property is, if the spots exist on their property or outside of their property. Because on the maps that I've seen, those spots exist on the line. So at that point, it's not,
I just didn't know who was in charge, that's all.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just, like, there's already parking spaces perpendicular in town, and I think there's supposed to be angle parking, but not perpendicular. It seems to be like a pattern going on in Parsons Field.
That it does. Okay.
All right, that's all I've got.
These are all very valid concerns. I mean, again, just like Alan said, I'm not against the project, but I want to make sure it's done correctly.
Sure, we're not.
I'd rather see preservation than the building fall apart and fall into the river. That's going to be worse for everyone. But it has to be done appropriately. Any questions that aren't in reference to the septic, which we have as an issue, or parking?
Just one clarification on the septic.
Sure.
Is there a plan in there that says how many gallons, bedrooms, uses? Like,
I don't
what is
think-
the size of the septic you propose?
the
Is
CEO.
it
He would know
HHE? Do you need an HHE for that?
Jesse?
We don't have a septic design for the building
Right.
yet.
Okay, so that would be another need before you.
No, we stated that earlier.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. I was just trying to catch up.
No. Okay, next topic. In this matter.
What color is it gonna be?
I heard it was gonna be fuchsia, but don't tell people that. Gentlemen, anything you
Black,
want to add?
black.
Black? Right,
Okay,
switch it up.
Mr. and Mrs. Wright, Jen? Lynn,
Thank you.
can I have a motion to close the public
so
hearing?
moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor? So approved. So we will now move on to the regular meeting of the Parsonsville Planning Board at 6:49. New business. Yep. You can nominate and elect a new chair. Chairperson.
Who said new?
Opening it up to you guys,
I'll make a motion.
please.
I'll make a motion that we nominate Aaron McGowan as the new chair of the planning board.
Have a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Approved.
He voted for you.
Jeff, go outside. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So we need to elect a vice chair. A nomination, please.
Yes, I nominate Roger Moreau as the vice chair of the planning board.
Can I have a second?
Don't look at me.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, you don't want to do this?
I really don't, but it's all
All in
right.
favor? You'd be
that's 2/3.
It's not,
No.
So we'll have to move on to another.
not me. I won't make another motion.
Any other nominations for vice chair?
I make a motion that Saban stays as vice, turns to vice chair.
Second?
Ice is nice.
Second. Depends. All in
Second,
favor? So approved. We need to vote on our multiple secretary positions.
multiple secretary positions.
So can I have,
Nominate to keep Desiree on as secretary for the planning board?
I'll second that. All in favor? Ask
Should have
unanimously.
abstained just to get her going.
Well, that's done.
Okay, correspondence, or do you want to take over? Yes, sir.
Keep from in there, our new.
Oh, and we want to welcome Harvey Maycomber as our new alternate.
Yeah.
Welcome, Harvey.
Continuing forward with your service to the town.
Yes, it's good to see you.
And we'll go forward with correspondence.
I want to apologize because I did a very poor job of making sure you had the correspondence. I have the letter of incompleteness from the last meeting for Keith's comments. I have copies here if you'd like them. And Saban has completed the missed meeting affidavit stating that he has reviewed all the pertinent documentation for both the block grant and the Keith Commons application, so he is all set to participate in tonight's meeting.
Yeah,
So we have the correspondence to review.
she told you she messed up after we voted her in.
Yeah, you waited till after the vote. Did everyone
So is that
review
the
any
only-
correspondence they received in their email? I have questions regarding that.
Take one and pass it on.
When I print it.
More paper,
Letter of incomplete.
that correspondence.
Yeah, this is a letter of incomplete application to Mr. and Mr. Mounts. Anybody have questions regarding this?
Got the tree map, Blockland, since last meeting.
Yep. Everyone has found their tree map or has a copy of that as well,
Yep.
which we'll address during the site plan. Okay. So a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved?
Second? All in favor? Approved. All right, moving forward. Old business. I'm sorry, review of minutes. August 16th, September 6th, the workshop, and September 16th, 2023 site walk, which we don't have.
I was gonna say, we don't have the sidewalk one.
Yeah, the workshop was canceled.
Workshop was canceled.
So we're looking at August 16th and September 6th. Has everyone read through the minutes and seen if there's any issues?
I had no concerns.
All right.
I didn't either, from listening to the audio. Can I have a motion to approve minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as they are.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? So moved. All right. So now we're going to old business, item A, site plan review of Michael and Eileen Blockland, map U12, lot 004, 15 Sunset Cove Road, shoreline zoning area, private residence and expansion,
That was,
which is why we have, is the Blocklands are the representative here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
and basically all we needed was believe this.
Yeah, I just have to, I have a, I was just. And I understand from listening to the audio, you guys requested a tree plan.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so because it falls in
Shorelands.
shoreland, there was a certain
Nah.
points per tree that had to be preserved or identified that in terms of number of points that were being kept or
Right.
And this satisfied the 30% rule, right, Aaron?
yes.
Okay. I listened to you guys on the tape. Oh. And Jesse, you would give them direction on additional plantings that may be needed? They've already talked to you about this? Okay. You have a plan to discuss that with the CEO?
Yes.
Because you're gonna probably need some time during construction to actually be able to predict what you need to plant. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not removing any more than 40%. It's obviously significantly less than that. So it's the trees identified in pink are the ones that are being
Taken down.
taken down.
I think I had trouble with that one.
Kind of had to put a house there without them.
Lots of places are not cutting any, 0, cut 29 here. Which is.
So can I have any comments from the board regarding this now that we have this additional
No,
information?
it's pretty much what we asked for. Pretty much showed us what it
From
was.
what I saw, gentlemen and ladies, this was the completion of the application that you were asking for, and from what I heard on the
Yep.
tapes.
Yep.
Do we want to make a motion if anyone doesn't have comments?
Larry?
Yes, please, Paul.
Do you guys see a width on this property? I see a length, 85 plus 40. Is there a width? Well, that says the road is 13 foot wide. But there's no way that's 13 foot wide. 5. So how wide is this? And have we checked with code? It's a buildable lot.
Yep, it is.
Hundred wide by 100 long, 100 and something long.
Something like that.
Close to 150, I believe,
Yeah, pretty long.
from the road to the water.
Jesse, does that sound correct to you? 100 feet wide on the Blockland?
It's 10688.
That's what it shows on the septic
Yeah.
design. It's 100 feet wide by 156 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I saw.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
other points of interest or order? Anyone want to make a motion to accept this as complete?
I'll make a motion to accept this application as complete.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Approved as complete. You want to move forward to approve this? Sorry, I'm going through, I had this in my email, but not a physical copy in front of me.
Take a minute.
We have a motion to approve this project. Do we have a motion to approve this project now that the site plan has been accepted?
I'll make a motion to approve this
Do we have a second?
Application is what, complete?
as complete.
We already did
It's
that.
already,
We already did the complete, to approve the application.
Something else, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're there.
What's the motion on the table then?
Roger's made a motion to approve the
Approve
project.
the project.
Second by Alan. All in favor? Approved. Desiree, will you make a letter out? Mr. and Mrs. Blockland and their representative?
Since I'm still sick.
No, man, the meeting's still going. All right, put that matter to rest. Item B, Parsonsfield Seminary subdivision review, map R04, lot 003, Land lot, Hop Swamp Road, proposed subdivision, no action. There's no representatives here.
Nothing yet?
So I'm going to table this for the moment. Item C, site plan review for Keyser Commons LLC, map U04, lot 003, 18 Federal Road, mixed uses, commercial, retail, office, residential, and short-term rental. And I would like to caution everybody that we are reviewing this, so please keep some level of candor as we go through our concerns. Please and thank you. All right, board. I have some concerns about the lack of parking plan and lack of septic plan. And in writing, I'm not seeing what your intended uses are for that particular building that are a little more concrete. It says mixed use, and I apologize, I wasn't at the site inspection, so you can tell me if I'm incorrect. Like, I know you're doing short-term rentals on the top level.
Just to be clear, the whole building will be subleased. So in a mixed-use building, very many business owners and different entities may come to the table. We are not that, so we are managing a space, and this is the process you go through before you buy a building and before you utilize a space and develop it and better the area, so for that reason, we're here.
That's why I was asking for clarifications. I thought at an earlier point, I saw that there was a proposed restaurant or something else.
That's not in the,
Not in this application. Okay.
I mean, but it could be.
I just want to make, again, due diligence, making sure we're asking the correct questions based on the businesses.
the easy answer is any and all uses that are applicable and anything that is not will require further.
And acceptable based on the space and its limitations. Okay.
But to be clear, in the application, it listed everything we could possibly think of as being, offered there at that building. So we don't want to have to come back every time we want to put in a different business. That shouldn't be the case. As long as it's a commercial.
I think if you're subleasing the buildings, you wouldn't have to come back every time. It would be an individual business owner that would be coming back.
I think the use is also already acceptable, is it not? We're kind of outside the box as far as being here.
No, I 100% agree.
We're not really changing the use of the building that historically been.
It just obviously has complications.
As a restaurant in the past.
I don't know about that, but for that, it would require.
That's my questions, because when you get into restaurants, you get into a whole huge amount of parking, more septic issues.
My goal is not to operate.
With this application, we're missing the
But
part
you
where,
said, in fairness, you said whatever comes to the table.
It very well could be a restaurant, yes.
where we're missing the parking plan for this. You need to, my understanding is you need to state specifically what the intentions are so that for instance, parking can be determined. Like, are they gonna be 2-bedroom units, 1-bedroom units? How many seats is the restaurant? Is it a restaurant or is it something else?
Again,
Those all affect the application on the parking side.
Right.
So specific use is kind of necessary in my understanding.
Possibly.
For change of use, correct?
Again, but then we don't want to approve this based on ambiguity, and then suddenly you want to put in a brewery, or, you want to open up TGI Fridays there. Obviously, I'm just being facetious with the name.
Again,
That changes.
It already meets the requirements for.
You're asking about change of use, but I just asked you if you knew if it had ever been a restaurant before.
No, but the uses that we're applying for, we're not applying for a change of use, I don't believe.
Okay.
It's not grandfathered. It has been a single family-ish home for years, so every use is new. That's how you bring it up to standards of the ordinance.
You have 18 months.
On the parking, you might want to check with DOT on the.
I'm going to go forward and say, just out front, so that we all don't get rambling at the same time.
Initially, why did we apply? We want to go through the whole deal and make sure we get, a new star at the end of the day. But it was never requested, a parking plan.
Right.
And there's other details that were good, legitimate. There was a drainage plan,
Yeah.
that we submitted. But it was never requested that I'm aware of for a parking plan. But that's fine. But that's fine too.
Right.
It's legitimate.
I'm just going to clarify, personally, my position is I would love to see old buildings restored and used, and I think that that's needed in the town, so I'm not against your project. I just have a couple concerns about where the project is going. In order to make that approval, I think that we don't have the proper information. Septic plan. I mean, you've got your plan for through construction, correct?
Yeah.
So what's post-construction?
What we have, as far as the septic goes,
You have that in writing.
you have the Saco River.
Do we have the Saco, no, but do we have a septic plan this in writing?
Was that required? That was never required. Now, it was initially, the Saco River corridor has got the jurisdiction there. So they've given us the unanimous consent to have 2-year permit
For construction?
for renovations. And while we're working on the building, by next spring, they anticipate, and we've told them this, they accepted, that the a developed engineered plan, will be developed over, once we get approval, talk about getting the cart in front of the horse, we want to make sure that this is all okay and approved, and the banks are looking at that too. So you guys are important and are a step forward.
Yep.
So why would we spend thousands of dollars in engineering on a intricate, custom designed plan for a septic system if we're not gonna get the approval from the town to do business there? No, we're not gonna spend that kind of money on the design.
Unfortunately, you do have to sometimes spend the money in order to do business.
Even residential homes that are being built need a septic design for the application.
Yep.
We're Jesse.
So if I'm proposing a new home, I have to present with the application, all that, a septic plan before it's
In this
approved.
case, it's kind of an interim plan that we have, we've submitted, and that is to use the tanks, the infrastructure of the mill that it's already currently hooked into. So there's nothing changed there.
Yeah, I understand that, but you don't.
So we have a 2-year permit from Saco River to develop that plan and to install a standalone, self-sustaining septic system for that building.
I understand that, but my understanding here with the planning board is that we would have to have our own ability to accept that information, having a septic design. Even though the quarter has their acceptance, it doesn't coordinate with our acceptance, is my understanding. That's why we have our little checklists and all that.
But isn't there some level of reasonableness amongst, and give you some judgmental ability to say, hey, they've got a plan for their interim construction so they get going on this building. It's gonna take some time. So we're gonna use that septic system instead of J. John's parked out front or on the side of that building. It just.
So let's say you use an interim while trying to do your permanent. And how do you know at this point that the permanent is doable? Have you had Anderson or anybody come over and actually do an engineering look yet?
Yes, we have.
So they would have done a plan.
We have.
Have they submitted a plan to code?
It's based off of the square footage that's available and the known technologies. So we've got engineers and designers.
Right, but there's depth issue as well.
What's that?
There's depth issue with digging there.
Oh, no, this is part of what I'm telling you, is that the engineers that have come on, looked at it on site, whether it's Sturgeon or Anderson or.
Did they provide paperwork on what they assessed?
They assessed it in opinion as far as a site observed space and ability.
Okay, so not in a professional way, not in a professional hired
That's their
manner.
professional opinion, you betcha.
Their opinion, but they didn't document it. Is that correct?
They did document and they did state thoroughly dozens of these engineers.
So was it a
Shake your head
verbal
about this,
plan?
Mr. Jackson.
Nothing.
It's disrespectful.
Hey,
I'm not,
Michelle.
got nothing to do with you, Scott. I'm sorry. Got nothing to do with
Well, I'm
you.
having a conversation with Paul here about a pertinent.
I can look and do what I desire to do.
Yes, but it's very childish. It's very childish.
I don't hear no more out of you about me. I'll take care of me, you take care of you.
It's very childish.
Enough.
Did you hear me?
Okay, both of you.
No, I
enough.
don't listen to you.
Guys,
Alan, come on.
back.
It's Facebook Live, folks.
That's right.
There's no need for this.
There's no need for that.
Okay,
No
so
need for that
the
either.
running commentary can stop. Would you please finish?
So what I was trying to clarify is if those engineers had actually written anything down to be presented as part of your application, and that does not seem to be
No,
correct.
that is not.
Okay.
Not for our application. It wasn't requested for.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. That's all I needed to know, if they had actually, if you had actually had people go and engineer something with documentation, but that's not correct. You got,
These are
Is it-
feasibility
Is it feasible to put
statements we have.
conditions and
no, the ability to actually build and dig right there.
Yes, we have engineers that have stated such.
Okay, so they've done a core sample, they've dug, they've gone deep,
Yes.
they know how far they need to go.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
do you have documents on that?
We do have documents pertaining to our exact system that we'd like to put in, no. Under our supervision, no.
No, in the location.
On the location, yes.
Yeah, so, okay. So you've had a septic guy go out and look at that location, the
Yes,
land?
yes.
Okay.
Several engineers.
No, okay. And did they give you any documentation to give to the application?
For your application, they gave us information, yes. They did declare what their position was professionally and the feasibility for that area to produce so many gallons per day. Gave us feedback on that, yes. We have many of those. For our application is what you're asking. For this application, no, it was not. We do not have that, and that was not requested.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions? I have one more. if I can.
Please.
On your contract for the sale of commercial real estate, couple of problems I see. I have, looks like Mark is a purchaser, right? And we have Alfred as a seller.
It's Mark and I, but since we flipped the coin, he's gonna be the manager.
Awesome.
So he can sign without my signature.
So Mark had a witness, the seller did not have a witness, and neither documents are dated at time of signature.
They're all done,
And I ask that because in this agreement, it talks about April 12th, 2023, that it's only valid until that time period. And then you have a closing title date of May 9th, 2023. Did you guys close on that date?
The purchase for a seller.
it was done, per electronic legal signature. So no party had to be in one particular place all at once.
I understand that, but there's no timestamp on his signature and no witness
On whose signature is that?
on the sellers.
On sellers.
Yeah, there's no witness and there's no timestamp on all the purchaser or the
Get
sellers.
that for you, the seller's been done.
Well,
His attorney-
it should be on the contract.
I'll address that, I'll ask.
Yeah, if you can get an updated contract with your application, that would probably be in your best interest.
Good point.
Roger, anything? Yeah.
the septic deals with?
So from a use standpoint, the intention is retail in the 3 units on the first floor. And then we said,
Say that again,
so the 3 units on the first floor of the building
first floor.
are commercial, retail,
That's what it's saying.
right. And then on the second floor, 3 residential.
There is a flex space up there that could also be used as an office as well, the lawyer's
Right.
office.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you said one was 2 bedroom, 2 were 1 bedroom?
Yeah,
Or-
it's debatable what they are. You guys want
Okay.
to there, it's pretty messy and it's
But
in
there's
bad
multiple
shape.
doors to say, each apartment has several doors, so that, they've had a jeweler up there, they've all had all kinds of businesses up there, along with rentals, residential. So the one room could be blocked off and it could be a separate,
Anything.
anything.
But for, your plan is to do 3 bedroom, is what you're putting before us. Or 3 units, 3 residential units. Okay.
And it's yet to be determined what they actually are due to layout.
So that, because that's what has the impact on the parking plan that we'll need.
And future sewer.
Right.
Which those are both two known issues with this building for a long time. So that's not new to any of us.
Right. No, the space isn't there, right? I mean, unless you're parking in the building, right? Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, based off the square footage, that I could get off the plans that we had, the first and second spaces, so moving west to east, would each need 4 spaces. The large space, which is the bank side, would need 9. And then you would need, if you're doing a 2-bedroom and 2 one-bedrooms, that's an additional 5 spaces.
Is that based off of square footage? You're doing that off of?
So the retail space, the commercial space is based off square footage.
What
And
about
then,
an office? Because the office space, the bank would be considered an office space, not a retail store.
okay, so it's 1 space for every 250 square feet.
So it's the same as.
So it would be 5 spaces. And so you round up. So obviously if it's 1,010, then you have to round up to 1,250.
Alan? Okay. So my concerns are future use of septic and its impact on the environment, and if you guys did an environmental study, I don't think it would hurt to have included it. Also, obviously, parking impact on the town in general, in both positive and negative manners, and I asked you about restaurant uses because we don't want to give you an approval that gets you nowhere later. So you keep saying you don't want to spend money on something to find out you can't do it. But if we give you an approval and you go spend $1 million on renovations and you can't put anybody in the building, that's not going to help you either. And the reason why I keep being redundant about things is right here in several spots, it says, you need to provide location of parking. So obviously, a parking plan isn't something we're just now requesting. It's item J on our application. Location dimensions, well, provisions for water supply and wastewater disposal, which leads to a septic plan, which everyone needs to build anything these days, is item R. And under exact nature of proposed use, because we can't really be that ambiguous, you did put right on here, installation of septic system on subject property, mixed use such as food and beverage.
It's not my application. You're
I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to my contacts in so I can see both of you. Commercial, retail, I understand you're giving us a broad spectrum, but that broad spectrum can lead to problems from all of us. I am 100% behind you for renovating that building in Bravo. But as far as I'm concerned, this is an incomplete application without more solid information. So I'm going to leave it up to the board. Anyone want to make a motion?
Should we outline what items?
Well, obviously item J, which is the parking plan, which you guys will need to include. You've got to figure out some sort of either crystal ball future for what you're doing there so that we know that we have some sort of a septic plan past the point of construction for your own safety. As a business person too, I don't want to build something I can't use because I do stand by my words that you have to sometimes spend money to make money, but there's no sense to spending money as you do not want to do to not be able to make it. And then you have an unsellable building you just renovated, or it's a giant, something that we don't want to see there. I think that the town needs it, and I think our Main Street deserves it, but I just don't think you're at that point where we can approve the application. That's my personal. If anybody else has anything to say, or we need a motion. And those are the 2 items I'm picking up on right now. And I'm not trying to give you bits and pieces of it. I sadly, unfortunately, was not at the site walk. I was actually very much looking forward to it when it came up, and I didn't see the notice.
Well, come on over.
I love old buildings. I love this town. I love its character. And I've said many, many years that I think since I've moved here, it's a shame to see that building just sitting there. And I understand your problems with issues with paint falling off buildings. My house is doing the same thing, and I'm running around putting tarps on my lawn because I'm assuming that it's lead paint, because I'm not necessarily doing anything with it at the moment, but I'm trying to keep the impact. I'm also having issues with E. coli. And mine was told to me by the folks at the Maine Water Commission when I submitted it, and by Nelson Analytical, that they're seeing high levels of E. coli throughout the water everywhere due to the rain and runoff. So I'm not blaming your building for, I think that's presumptuous. And I'm not insulting you for bringing it up. It's a good point, but I just didn't want to get into an argument about it in the middle of the public hearing. I think
I'm not
that,
here to argue,
No.
but I think we've said it needs to be
agreed.
figured out as to
I think
how
that's what I'm
to-
demonstrating right now is that we need to have a good plan for you to succeed. And I don't want you to come back every single month because I don't want to look at you every month and you don't want to look at me. So those are the two items I see. I think the board should feel free to speak up so that we can help these guys expedite this project and also heed the concerns of your citizens.
Yeah, we need the community support, or else the
Yeah.
building will in fact decompose.
It will decompose or you'll open a building that no one will frequent and that's
We are going forward, they are going forward with the purchase of the building.
approaching the town about using municipal parking because as of now, there's some regulations that might prevent that from you. And if you come up with a plan to bring to us ahead of time, then you need to forecast and stem for everything. Everything that you could possibly think you may have bites on. I could probably think of 20 different businesses that would probably love to go in over there. But if that way, nobody's telling you down the road, well, you don't have enough parking, that sign's not gonna work. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're gonna go through with a contract for all of them, but it will unfortunately help keeping you from coming back and making this go on forever. And I hope the rest of the questions get, whatever court issues are done and over with. I don't disagree with your ability to make decisions based on Maine state law. I think it's a pain in the butt that you have to go through it. But those are my two main points.
So we do have, get back to the septic. We do have, designs
Okay.
for that space, for that building. Engineered drawings.
How come they're not in here?
They weren't specifically requested. Even though they're in there, I'll have to pass blame on to my brother for.
I'm not blaming anyone. It's maybe ambiguous to you that
It's the process.
wastewater disposal under section R meant septic plan. And maybe we can add that to our site inspection
So we'll
application.
get you a parking plan and a septic plan, right?
Yeah, but I would highly encourage you guys to go through items A to Y and make sure you have every one of those checked off so you're not wasting your time coming here.
Paul's,
Well, my concern on this is a purchase agreement, but do we have a copy of you have a lease agreement with them or a use agreement as well? Or is that what this is supposed to cover?
The
that's,
sale comes first.
so this is between the mortgage holder and
Yeah,
us as a buyer.
yeah,
Unfortunately, it is still tied up in court.
yes, that's,
So
okay.
the previous owner signed a deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Oh, yeah, that
To
doesn't
escape
work.
700 grand of bad debt.
Yeah,
So, he signed it and he also signed an affidavit. I'm of sound mind, I have no problems, I am sitting in my phone free will. So a week after he signs all that, he turns right around and he files all this conspiracy and
okay.
extortion, all this, everything you could think of against the mortgage holder. So now the mortgage holder, so we could close and record the deal, we've already closed, say, for in our minds, we've put down the deposit money, we've put down our signatures, all legally per the mortgage holder's attorney and our attorney. Everything is up to snuff as far as the signature go and the timing and the language that you have there. Now,
Right, but the seller is holding up the sale.
The previous owner has now attached litigation to the building.
Are you saying the mortgage company is the current owner?
Mortgage holder has actual title, correct. We have equitable title through our legal contract with that mortgage holder. Equitable title is what it's called.
Okay,
So our lawyers before we came in and just did certain points. That the notion that we couldn't just go forward with our application with just our signature. He says, oh, get it from Al.
do we have a copy of that information?
What's that?
Do we have a copy of that contract?
Which contract?
When you were just speaking of?
Yeah, you have it right there in front of you. That's the sale.
Well, this talks about the escrow.
Equitable title,
Now,
legal.
it's like a deposit, but,
That's our contract.
right, well, this is to purchase.
That's our purchase agreement.
Purchase sale agreement.
Yeah, and the closing date was May 9th this year.
Yes.
But you didn't close on this.
We technically did, but it has not been recorded because we cannot get, well, we could record it and say we're flat out the owner.
Well, no, closing would mean the title's in your name.
Well, it's in dispute.
It's in dispute, yeah.
So,
Equitable.
so in a deed in lieu situation, deed in lieu, it's called deed in lieu foreclosure. Basically, it's like a voluntary repossession on a vehicle. The owner of the property is saying, I don't want the property anymore, but in order to avoid the lengthy and costly foreclosure, I'm going to turn the deed over to the bank in lieu of the bank filing
I'm
foreclosure.
just going by the dates here. There are certain dates that have passed.
Right. And so those have passed, but prior to the recording of the deed is when the lawsuit has been filed,
Okay.
which would freeze everything until that part is resolved. And that part is,
But currently, the mortgage holder is holding the title.
Correct.
And so the mortgage holder gave you a lease contract of some type, a
No,
uses
this- we have a
contract?
sale and purchase agreement. That's our contract.
Okay,
We're a contract on the building, which in turn makes us equitable title holders.
and you did all that by April 12th or May 9th?
Yes.
Okay.
This is past spring, yeah. Last winter, last spring. All that took place. So since then, and you're right, I'm going to question that, Paul.
Yeah,
There's no witness to Al, that would have been done.
And no date as to signatures?
Electronically. So I'll address that with Mark and he can clarify that up if you want. But according to state law, there's many parties that have signatures. And one guy's in Arizona, another guy's in Florida, and it's spread out. So legally, through US wire law, you can sign separately in separate locations through an officer of the court. So that's what took place.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Your third thing to
need a motion, folks.
Would it be appropriate to table the application?
As the chair, I'm going to table it. This is a motion, based on the fact that you, again, know what we brought up that we're concerned about that you need.
A septic plan
Yep.
and parking.
And, yeah, and hopefully for your sakes, resolution to your issues on the other side, but I understand that isn't necessarily going to stop you. Again, we want you to succeed. We just want you to succeed now and run into a wall in 3 months. Then you can come back and say, well, I just spent $2 million and you guys suck. That's not the goal here.
So septic
Yep,
and parking plan.
correct.
Is there anything else?
I think that you need to listen to your community and there's some concerns about lead remediation. And if you've done an environmental study.
What is the concerns there? That's no problem. When it comes time to take care of that and to strip that building down, pressure wash it, scrape it, we have to take all the precautions.
Right.
And we know how to do that. We're certified to do that. Even if we have somebody doing the work that is not certified, as long as we are certified and we're on site, it can still take place.
Yep.
So we know how to mitigate that, so that's not an issue. So again, it's just the septic.
in here somewhere, you had mentioned an easement obtained from the neighbor for the fire escape.
Yes.
Is that in this pile of easements?
It should be in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it, is it in there?
I didn't-
I hadn't
see
had a
it.
chance to go through these yet, so I just want to make sure it was.
So there's three things. Let me write that down again.
As far as what he was talking about over there, is that gonna just stand as a purchase sale agreement, or does something else have to be done?
That's on our purview.
Okay, I'm just saying, you know, it's the full list of things you gotta do.
Yeah, that was either, it looks like everything's going through DocuSign, so if you have the DocuSign document, we'll have where it's like stamped by them, it shows like, it'll show the dates and everything. So Mark should be able to get that.
If you're planning on putting new lighting on the building, have you done a drawing of that?
Again, there's no incentive to buy the building if it's unusable. That's-
You already bought the building.
They are buying the building.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to look through our list of everything that's on here.
There's
I could-
flexibility in every aspect, you know,
Yeah.
so that is why we're here to feel out uses. And if it is a multi-use building, it is not designed to be a single family home, you know, so if those uses aren't feasible, then
So-
they're not feasible.
Item U is location and type of exterior lighting, which is why I brought it up. So if you're just doing some architectural lighting to enhance the building quality, that needs to be brought up at some point. I don't want you to come back so we can pick apart every little thing.
Excuse me. So you still have a chance to back out of this purchase agreement?
That's not.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Oh, you're just giving me the impression that you guys, it was yours, other than what's going on in the court, the mortgage.
As long as there's litigation and the mortgage holder is not able to perform his end of the contract, gives us the right, to answer your question, to reject it.
Okay,
Consider due diligence, okay.
So this is part of that process.
gotcha, okay.
So if we get too much pushback on this or that,
Yeah.
and cumulatively say, you know what? We're walking. I mean, it's a possibility. We do have that choice.
So did they give you a time frame on that?
It would be, that'd be up to our lawyers. So they have submitted, different things along the way according to that contract that, I have the basics in my mind. But the exact details of the process of filing, a certain document to mortgage holder in a certain timely manner, if things aren't fulfilled, protects us in our interest.
Yeah. And so they did provide the first amendment to the contract for sale. That was what they had first before we asked for the purchase and sale agreement that we got.
Oh, okay.
That does kind of outline like responsibilities and for legal fees and things like that. But that's sort of their, their next step from that document.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
See, Bob, we just, we're cheap.
Oh, yeah, no, actually, it's not you. This whole situation with the previous owner is very different than standard. And so that's why I'm encouraged, so everyone is safe and,
That's an understatement.
right? So
That's an understatement.
just making sure everyone's,
And
so,
so our attorneys, we've had to pay through the nose, triple amounts.
I'm sure.
This kind of unique contract.
yeah.
But
But that's why I'm.
we want to wait until this type of thing is our due diligence is very complete.
Yep,
The environmentals, the environmental report is 1,600 pages long in that building.
oh, yeah.
So they went through the roof, the sampling, now exactly what tests they had soil samples, they had a lot of things. The paint was one that he wanted to save a few $100 on, $450 on, by saying, hey, we're assuming it is. So we're gonna go forward with the removal as if it is, just to save some of that money.
Yeah, that's the right way to
So
go.
we're cheap, like I said. We're trying to save what we can. We're not gonna put down $25,000 into an escrow account, non-interest bearing,
Yeah.
to a title company, cover their butt for future litigation in case there is a problem with this title. So we're not gonna accept that deal from the title company just to hurry up and close on the deal.
Gotcha.
So now what's happening is the mortgage company is having to go back and they're very upset. And now they're out for blood. This guy screwed up. The judge even mentioned in this last hearing, oh, it's a sweetheart deal for you, Mr. Collins. But now, the mortgage holder is gonna go through with a formal foreclosure, and that's, looking at a tremendous amount of money
Yeah,
to go through a formal foreclosure. And if he wants that on his record, instead of walking away from all that incurred debt with the mortgage company, that's his choice.
right.
So we just have to wait another few months.
Basically, the mortgage holder has to get right to the deed. And that's where they are in the process. They thought they had it voluntarily given up by the owner and then it was rescinded and that happens. More,
So it's actually,
kind of what I do for work is mortgage risk.
Yeah.
So situations like this I'm familiar with. They happen.
it's unfortunate.
It is.
But that's why the title company is willing to give us go through with the title or the closing, the actual closing, where it gets recorded. Say, instead of just having equitable title, like, but we're like, no, we're not putting up 25 grand into a non-bearing interest escrow account for litigation. We'll just it'll take 3 or 4 months, it's a setback, but at least we'll have a judicial foreclosure.
Yep.
And he'll have no recourse, and he'll have a tremendous judgment against him for the rest of his life. If he wants to go down this road. He wants money out of everybody.
I don't think that's appropriate, what you're saying.
Well-
Just wanted to put that out.
No, it is appropriate, because it's in the
It's
court,
not.
it's in the court documents that he wants damages. So what I said is not slander.
He
It's in
wants
the court
money out of
documents.
everybody, that's not slander?
Okay, back to the board, please. We've tabled this matter, so we're gonna move on to the next, which I believe is public comments.
All right.
Nope, sorry,
New business.
new business.
Nope.
No discussion, LD 2003.
Thanks. I moved my stuff in this.
So we did get
I
a,
would just advise you guys to go literally A through Z.
Thank you guys.
Thank
thanks
you.
guys.
Okay,
So LD 2003, so I reached out again to SMPDC.
yep,
As I did a month ago and said, hey, where do we stand on this? You know, to see about applying
Provide
for
funding.
the funds, and then getting somebody here to advise us on that. Haven't heard anything. That was on Monday, so I'm still waiting to hear back from SMPDC.
Can we circle back for a second? Was there a motion to table it on for these comments?
Thought there was. No, he tabled it.
Okay, so there
He
was,
can do that as chair.
okay, just,
Yeah.
as the chair, I can table.
I just want to make sure I have it
Yeah.
right.
No motion needed, no, nothing like
I
that.
don't believe so.
All right, now new business, part 2.
We're almost there, Mary.
I'm waiting for LD 2003, so. When do you think?
Well, we don't have any new business, right?
No.
So public questions. Go ahead.
I just said it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
When do we think what?
LD 2003.
well, they moved the deadline out, so we have some time before we have
January
to
1st.
buy it to January 1st.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be in order, it's
Well-
going to take effect?
No.
I didn't make the date up.
Right. No,
That's the current date listed with
January,
Right.
But
and
It was originally July 1st, I believe.
Correct. My question is, do we have to wait for SMPDC in order to apply for the money? There's a list under the Maine Department of Economics and Community Development that gives you what is needed to apply for the money.
We don't need to, no. We engage them to do so. But there's not a requirement for us to go through them.
Do we engage them to fill out the forms for us? Is that what we engage them to do?
Well, we've engaged them for guidance around the, working on the ordinance updates that would be needed. And then they mentioned that they also handle that aspect of it. So we, in our workshop, agreed to pursue that. I mean,
Sure, they're
we
small.
haven't pursued it more than a single email, or a few emails going back and forth saying, you know, we would like to do this, and they said that it's something that they do, so.
I couldn't find a deadline for that application. Couldn't find a deadline for the DECA development company.
No, they just came out with an email, I think Thursday or Friday, with further outlines for applying for the funding. So came out with more information to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's,
Something we could ask Reagan or,
it's not her world.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. I wish it was, because she's very responsive.
okay.
I
I mean,
did get an out of,
I'll email also,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got an out of office from the person until Monday for the person that handles the applying for the funds. So, if I don't have a response, I assume that we'll do as we did last time and schedule a workshop to discuss it. And then, if I don't have anything at that point, I think that we should go our own and at least apply for the funds, get the funds so that we can then proceed with updating. There'll be a lot that needs to be done.
Even if you guys go ahead and spend money with SMPDC in terms of getting ordinances updated, we can get reimbursed for it too, so.
Right.
Otherwise, engage the selectmen in asking for additional funds for this,
Right. Yeah, otherwise we'd have to engage them
for more budgetary.
we'd have to, well,
Resources.
we'd have spending up to whatever our budget amount was, which was 5,000, I think. Yeah. We'd have discretionary spending up to that amount, so. But anything above and beyond, obviously.
Aaron?
I don't think how to say this. Airbnbs, as a board working on new regulations, are you considering anything about it?
I'm not aware that has been discussed.
When you say Airbnb, do you mean specifically the company or short-term rentals?
Short-term rentals,
Because that company itself isn't doing so well these days.
as,
So short-term rentals,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, Sleeps 10,
yeah.
Blah, blah.
A lot of municipalities have moved towards limiting that. I think Portland was the first one to take the major steps to it, but I don't believe it's been.
Rental regulations is a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Is they have to come in and get a permit yearly.
We have to.
I think in some localities, the owner has to be present.
Present.
Yeah.
I think Porter's that way.
Oh, really?
I think so,
I know South Portland is, so
because Brownfield.
Well, I don't think, we don't have any
anything on that.
anything on it. So
I think it's something we should schedule for a
No.
workshop.
So,
one place that the owner is present, but most of the other ones aren't.
so in the comprehensive plan, that's one of the many issues that we've discussed is sort of a lack of ordinances around certain items. Electric production, so solar, wind, there's no regulations in our book about that. There's no regulations around other items. I'm not gonna just air out everything that we don't have regulations on, but that's on there, so that's,
Plenty of things, like
Yeah.
even fireplaces, chimneys.
we have a lot of updates that are needed to this book. And so it's something that we are planning to do, for sure. And obviously that is gonna be a long process where we're gonna have to make updates, have public meetings, discussions, take into account things like that are concerns for the public and,
Just asking.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Coming.
It's
'Cause I know
coming,
it should be coming, so.
yeah.
The
Our goal is to
one
do
thing
that.
That goes all the way back to, Paul Donovan, who used to live in Garner Ave. He had wanted, the rear setback in the village to be less than, 25 feet. And you can see that everybody in town has a garage that's 5 feet from the property line.
Traditional.
But he wanted to put a shed in, and it would have ended up in the middle of his backyard. 5 feet from the side, but 25 from the back, Accessory structures, different regulations, we don't have any. So, just.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I mean, and then obviously you can apply for a variance, for any of that, for setbacks. I agree. You're not necessarily going to get it, right? And so that's the concern, but.
It's a lot of processes you go through for a shed.
It's supposed to be a hardship.
Yeah.
And I know that it isn't followed much, but that's really the way it's supposed to be. Is that if you have a financial hardship or any other type, that it's possible to get a variance.
Yeah, and then there's lot sizes, you know, if the lot isn't supportive of that amount, you know, that, you know, if a 25-foot setback's gonna put it in your living room, then obviously that's not gonna work, and so you can apply for a variance that
You
way.
know, I own a house right down the road from Allen. And, you know, you can see the lot lines. You know, all of the garages and stuff are all 5 foot off the rear line. You know, I mean, it's the village.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when those rules were put in and when the, you know,
Like 1971,
probably. Like most of the book.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah,
Times change,
agreed.
you know?
Yeah, and that's one thing we talked about is kind of trying to future-proof the ordinances for things like that. I mean, you know, when these were written, solar and,
And
And
also,
wind were not-
this is a strange one, but, animals.
yep,
Most properties in the village, can't sustain it because they don't have the property, but there are a few that do. You know, and they can't, or they're not supposed to because, you're not supposed to have chickens or pigs. I know plenty of times back in the day, we had all that in the village, you know. Oh, yeah. His grandfather's house in South Barham, they had, goats. Not his grandfather, it was after his grandfather, but goats in the house, chickens in the house.
yeah, I mean, those are the things, right, that we're gonna need to engage people to provide input on.
I believe that we can not just make rules harder, but relax some things in the village.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's something that, like I said, we'll want to get everyone's opinion on, and those concerns are,
So I guess what it was hinted to me was that you guys were pretty close to finishing rewriting the land. Obviously you're not.
no. So comp plan is getting close to finishing. We're working through the goals, policies, and strategies, which is sort of the meat of the comp plan. And so once that step is complete, then this board can then, because
Yeah, because
you were going to
make
start,
decisions until
To the comp.
they line up with the comp plan. so-
right,
It's very possible.
And,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's very possible that not having a finished comp plan could affect any monies we get from the state.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
right,
You know, it's you know, a requirement that
Right.
doesn't come with money to pay for it.
yeah,
You have to supply, the town has to supply.
yeah. Yeah, so we're working to get that completed.
Mandates, that's what I mean.
Yeah. And so once we get that step, then this board can then step into the ordinance work, which will be a bear. It's,
Yeah, I know. Been there.
yeah, it just, yeah, if you've read the ordinance, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna admit to you that I came on the board right after this writing, not the one in, that's a renewal. It was in, 2000.
Yeah.
2003 was when they redid everything.
right,
And you're gonna find things that when you put it to actual use, that you're gonna might have to do a little
yeah,
tweaking,
oh, yeah,
because that's just the way it is.
yeah. Yeah, there's definitely gonna be a lot of work. It's gonna be a year plus probably of trying to get everything, getting public input. And then obviously it's an ordinance change, so it's gonna go before the town to get voted on. So, yeah, a lot to it.
Did I know?
Motion to close public questions.
Second?
Second,
Any other public questions?
All in favor? You're not in favor?
Didn't look like Mr. Wright was done.
Oh, I apologize.
Never done.
I was gonna say.
It's been noticing. I heard the word flex space in the meeting. from what can flex space be used as a bedroom?
It's flex space. I mean, they're not determining, there's a lot of ambiguity.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I'm just-
ambiguity in flex.
I know it might be
Are you referring to LD 2000?
no.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just referring to something that might be nebulous. I love that word.
It's the second time you've used
I
that.
learned it a couple of meetings ago. Because a flex room, I could say, I have a one-bedroom, one flex room. I'm gonna have 3 apartments, they each have one bedroom, the flex room. Flex room becomes a bedroom. Now it's 2 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 2 bedroom. I just want to let you know that sometimes the word flex room can be
I think trying to build any business without a definitive desire of what your overall goal is, you're opening up the door for a lot of headache, which is what I was conveying earlier. It's hard to make an approval when we don't know what the end game is.
I just know flex.
But it's also very easy to go into
Added
something
it.
very excited and try to figure out what you're gonna do as you go along.
Oh, yeah.
I understand the joy of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's much joy in renovating that old building, but it has to be done appropriately.
Right, and he's not here to hear, but when he said he spent $10,000 already, doesn't want to spend any money. The $10,000 worth of reports, is there any, can you ask him to see those reports?
We suggested the more information they give us, the better.
I mean, if he spent $10,000, it'd be nice to know, show us the receipts, I guess.
No, not the results. Show us
The results.
show us the results.
Show us the results. That's,
I think that they are looking for some, and this is just a guess, modicum of privacy to what they do businesses, but I understand that to some degree with that redacted document. But where they're not already established with a proven track record, then that's why we're also curious as what the outcome will be. And that's, again, my opinion.
My problem is that he's not straightforward.
we
You
can't,
know,
we
he's
can't say
always
anything.
holding back,
We can't say anything.
you know?
Is that building going under a change of use?
We don't know because they don't, they keep saying it's an empty, they don't know who's coming to the table to lease the space.
Yeah.
So,
Because the last use was an apartment, and then,
In the paperwork, in the application, I think I saw in the Saco River corridor possibly, but it stated that its intended use was going to remain commercial/residential.
That was inaccurate though, because it wasn't, it's lost its grandfather status. It's-
I would caution us to continue to speak about an application when there's no applicants here.
yeah.
duly noted.
Okay, so public comments, we're not regarding anything we've already talked about? All right, then we need to make, the motion was made to close public comments. All in favor? We had a second already, okay. Now let's talk about the workshop for October 4th, 2023.
I will not be here.
Oh, you're fine.
Great, and we just reelected you.
I don't,
We said the meeting wasn't over quite yet.
Back on.
I mean, I don't miss many meetings, so I will be out of town.
Is anybody else not available that date? Oh, maybe. Okay. Anyone else? Because if we don't have a quorum,
Let me double check.
I'd like to make a statement.
Please.
To the board, to the planning board.
okay?
I'd like to apologize to the planning board for my unprofessional discussion I had with a client. And I'm sorry that happened, but I just needed to do that.
Yeah.
When I act unprofessional, it's very inappropriate. I would, I'm sorry that happened.
I think that's appreciated,
Yeah.
but
we're all human.
discussions tend to get heated. The point is, we can walk away afterwards and still have a difference of opinion.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so all in favor of a workshop on October 4th, do I have a motion?
To move workshop to October 4th.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, Desiree will take notes for you.
I will confirm with you on Monday to determine if you will have a quorum and if you do want to move forward with it in case you would like to cancel. And Jen's here, but we will figure out with the selectmen how to get you guys in here and get you the video on.
Have we used one of these before? If not, oh, we have, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen it, that's fine.
You're not required to, but it's a good thing to use as a tool for yourself.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more thing, I know I'm such a pain.
We just voted to adjourn.
I
I thought we did, I could have sworn.
Damn it.
We haven't done that yet. Depending on what's on the agenda for the 18th, I need to leave at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Again, I'm headed out of town. I can certainly start everything and lock you in the building. It's still going on. But
That could be
hopefully
really
with John
bad.
being here, maybe that means we're gonna have a selectman back at the meetings again, so. We'll cross that when we get here, just wanted to let you know that I need to leave at 7.
Okay, thank you. And you'll put that in our notes.
We'll remember to put it in your notes.
Thank you. And
Motion to adjourn?
a second, all in favor? Thank you, everyone, for coming. I know it's a tough topic.
In the beginning.
So that didn't explain.